This is the all-new EZ-60, an electric SUV that'll have you asking, wait, this is a Mazda?
Welcome to Wheels Boy, where we cover the newest, coolest, and wildest vehicles from the Chinese car market. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell.
The EZ-60 is unlike any other Mazda on Earth, and that starts with the platform, which was actually co-developed with Chinese automaker Chang'an, Mazda's longtime joint venture partner here in the Chinese market. Now, we've never reviewed the EZ-60 before, but we have reviewed the Deepal S7, a car from a Chang'an sub-brand which uses this platform.
The EZ-60 is actually the second Mazda built on this platform, the first being the EZ6 sedan, known overseas as the Mazda 6e. Just like the sedan, the EZ-60 comes in both extended range and pure electric versions.
Pricing for the extended range or EREV version of the EZ-60, a lot of letters together, sorry, is from $17,000 to about $22,000 US, whereas the all-electric versions go from about $21,000 to $22,500 USD. Even if you go all out and get a fully loaded all-electric version with every available option, you're still not going to go over $25,000. Of course, this is the price for the car here in China. As I understand it, the price of the EZ6 sedan more than doubled when they sent it abroad and started calling it the 6e. And honestly, you can expect the same thing to happen with the EZ60 when they send it out of the country and start calling it the CX6e. Call it whatever you want, the EZ-60 is a seriously good-looking SUV with some very interesting styling details, such as this air duct over top of the grille, which allows the grille to have better aerodynamics, but still a very full face, so to speak. Or this very 3D LED light that runs underneath of the grille. Even if you remove the badge, I think you could still tell this was a Mazda, just one that traveled here from the year 2040. Not that there's much risk of you ever doubting that there's a Mazda. After all, the brand has decided to slap a giant Mazda on the rocker panel. The futuristic aesthetic is only enhanced by the optional camera-based rear view mirrors. As we'll discuss when I get behind the wheel, I hate using them, but I cannot deny how cool they look, like some sort of advanced laser weapon system that's been grafted to the side of the car. So cool. That air duct over the grille isn't even the coolest one on the car. That would be this entire D-pillar, which is actually a hollow buttress that allows the air to flow in right here, sticking to the body and flow out right there. Now, obviously, this thing has prioritized both style and aerodynamics. However, it still manages to have pretty good storage space inside. 549 liters with the second row up and up to 2,036 when you lay them down. And that's before we start talking about the 126-liter frunk, which is really deep. And then you remove this panel and you realize it's outrageously deep.
Whenever I go to a new car launch or test drive event, I always try to remember all the most important details from the briefing. But after a full day of filming and test drives, yeah, I usually forget about half of it. That's why I've started bringing this, the Plaud Note Pro. It's a tiny assistant that captures everything from the briefing, the engineer's explanation, the Q&A, even quick snapshots of the slides, all synced into one place. The app gives me a quick summary with key points so I can get right to work. Ask Plaud also helps me stay organized, find files, and brainstorm, like a personal assistant. Though it's only the size of a credit card, it packs 4 studio-grade mics that can pick up voices clearly from up to 5 meters away, and runs for 50 hours. Meanwhile, your phone may be down to 5% battery and a single incoming call can interrupt the audio capturing. And with its privacy and data security certifications, I can trust that all my files are safely protected. For me, it's become part of the kit, right next to the camera and lenses. Check out Plaud Note Pro for anyone who wants to focus on what matters, not on taking notes. Don't forget to check the link in the description and use my discount code WheelsBoy to enjoy a special offer.
If you were hoping that the EZ-60's interior would present you with something that was a little bit more familiar to your average Mazda fan, you're going to be sorely disappointed. The dashboard has this long, thin, ambient light strip that would normally be the star of the interior of most cars, but the star on the interior of the EZ-60 is definitely this 27-inch 5K center display with a MediaTek MT8676 chip. Response times from that MT8676 chip are reasonably fast. They're not the fastest on the market. I'd say they're actually probably on the slower end of the market, but they're not slow enough that they're going to cause you a great deal of frustration by any means. The UI, however, has caused me a bit of frustration. So when it comes to these really long screens, it's really important that the UI has certain functions and designs. First of all, you need to be able to switch content from one side to the other, which you can do on this car by swiping your two fingers, and you can pass it back like this. That's good. What's not so good is the fact that they've taken a lot of the more vital functions, in my opinion, and they've made them only accessible from the passenger side. For example, there's no shortcut down here for turning the navigation on. Instead, I have to hit the app button here and then turn on the navigation. That's one more step than there should be. The same for media. Over here, the passenger has a button that they can just press right there, opens up their media center, whereas me, I've got to go hit that same little app button, then open the media center. There should be shortcuts for all of these over here on this side of the screen. It would make it much better. But the fun has only begun when it comes to screens on the inside of the EZ-60. For example, nestled into the doors are the displays for your digital rear view mirrors. They're kind of tucked in like this to make sure that they don't get affected by sun or glare on them. Does make it a little harder for my cameraman to film, though. If you drop the extra $700 to get the digital exterior mirrors, you also get a digital interior mirror as well. Other $700 options include the 100-inch heads-up display, but fear not, this thing doesn't have an instrument cluster, but it does have a standard 50-inch heads-up display, even on the cheapest car that costs, once again, about $17,000. For $700, you can also get the 23-speaker Dolby Atmos surround sound audio system. Now that I'm thinking about it, every single option on this car is $700 or 5,000 RMB, including, again, the mirrors, the sound system, the heads-up display, even the 21-inch wheels. They just really love the 5,000 RMB or $700 price point. The styling of this interior is quite premium looking, at least, especially in this nice two-tone eggshell and purple color tone, including nice stitching on the door panels. There are large swaths of hard black plastic ranging from the dashboard up here with that very plasticky looking ambient light to the center console. I appreciate that they've chosen to put some pattern on here instead of having it be pure piano black plastic, but I'm not sure if this pinstriping is quite to my taste. Of course, this amount of hard plastic is more than acceptable at this price point and even probably a little bit higher than this price point, but if you really want to distract yourself from the hard plastic, you can always remember that this top spec, at least, comes standard with dual front row zero gravity seats that are massaged, cooled, and heated. Sadly, however, and unlike an increasing number of Chinese cars these days, there's no refrigerator in the center console, just regular old storage. No space for zero gravity seats here in the second row, but there is optional heated and cooled seats. I don't know if it's 5,000 RMB or $700, but let's just assume that it is for consistency's sake. Space-wise, good legroom, as you can see. Headroom, however, a little bit tight for cars in this particular segment, thanks, I think, to that beautiful roof line. Still, the seats themselves very comfortable. Why? Because they are firmer than your average Chinese car seats, at least from what I can tell. It feels much more supportive and comfortable. Not a lot to complain about, honestly, but if I had to pick something, and I've always got to pick something, it's this center console right here. Now, this does fold down. It's very nice to be able to have an armrest with cup holders, but the way they've designed it, it sticks out just enough for you to grab it with your fingers instead of having a loop or a pull. I don't like that because it just looks like it's poorly installed, like it won't fit all the way in properly. I prefer a loop. Yeah, I prefer a loop. At this point, you've inevitably noticed my sick new kicks. These are custom pieces that were made for me by an up-and-coming young artist who happens to be my 8-year-old nephew. Or is he 9? Or is he 10 already? I don't know, I'm a bad uncle, but these are some awesome shoes. Thanks, Alex. Underneath this all-electric EZ-60 is a 78 kilowatt-hour LFP battery pack with a claimed CLTC range of 600 kilometers and a claimed 30 to 80% charge time of 15 minutes. If, however, you suffer from an excess of range anxiety, you can always go with the extended range version. That has a smaller 32 kilowatt-hour LFP pack, but replaces that frunk with a 1.5-liter four-cylinder generator. If you're able to charge your car at home, keep it topped up, honestly, you'll probably never use any gas. But in the event that you're able to deplete the 200-kilometer CLTC range of that car, well, then the generator turns on and you just keep on going. But regardless of which powertrain you choose, they both use the same rear-mounted electric motor, making 190 kilowatts and 290 newton meters of torque. Mazda has declined to provide an official 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time, but honestly, power feels more than adequate, even when you're trying to pass at highway speeds. And besides, Mazdas, they're not known for their acceleration. They're known for providing fun driving dynamics at a low price. The EZ-60 has definitely nailed the low price part of that, but I'm not quite as convinced when it comes to the fun to drive aspect. This thing has a McPherson strut front suspension and an HR multi-link in the rear with adjustable dampers on this top spec. Now, those adjustable dampers are available as an added cost option on lower spec cars, and you'll never believe how much that option costs. That's right, $700, because of course it does. All of this is good on paper, but the experience that it provides is, at best, slightly better than its Chinese rivals. I mean, this is again a Chinese platform, but I would expect Mazda have taken a pretty heavy hand in the tuning of it. Speaking of tuning, those adjustable dampers, I have switched between comfort and sport so many times, and I truly cannot tell you if there is a difference between the two. It really does feel exactly the same. Add to that steering that is pretty direct but genuinely quite vague, and also a very soft brake pedal that does not inspire confidence. You eventually get used to it, but it's not very nice to deal with. And you have an experience that just, I don't know. It doesn't feel zoomy, everybody. It doesn't feel especially zoomy.
Yeah, zoom.
Do I think your average driver would be disappointed by how this car handles? No. But I do think that your Mazda fanatics are not going to be very impressed. At least Mazda is keeping up in other areas, such as the driver assistance system, what they call E0. That includes highway NOA, or navigation on autopilot, which will follow the navigation prompts, including switching from one highway to another, merging from one to another, all on its own. It's not the most advanced system on the market, but it is smooth and competent enough to make long trips much easier. And it's much more impressive than the systems that are available on Mazdas anywhere else in the world. But while I'm happy to see that Mazda is getting access to more advanced electric powertrains and more advanced driver assistance systems, not everything that came out of their partnership with Chang'an is good. Now it's time to talk about these digital rear view mirrors. Now, I've used digital rear view mirrors across a bunch of different cars, including 2 different models from Avatar, Chang'an's high-end electric brand. But despite all this experience, I still can't get used to them. I really can't. First of all, their position is much lower than a normal rear view mirror, so you have to retrain your body to look down instead of over here. Number 2, because it's a display, a screen instead of a mirror, you actually have to refocus on it in order to see what it's displaying. That's just more time that you're not looking ahead at the road. There are differing opinions in the Wheelsboy office as to whether or not these are good. The cameraman who's sitting next to me in the car, he really likes them, and he says that if he could, he would option them on his future car. But for me, they're a no-go. One thing I will say that I really like is the fact that when you activate the turn signal, as I'm doing right here in this turn, it actually creates gives you a wider angle perspective from the camera, giving you a better view of what's happening next to you. Still, I would just prefer to go with the regular rearview mirrors. And they're free on this car, so good for me. The EZ-60 might not be the best possible Mazda in the traditional sense, but it is an electric SUV that can compete here in the Chinese car market. And that's what the Mazda brand really needs right now. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check us out on all the social media platforms, links in the description below. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. See you next time.
horsepower Mazda MPV. Body of a minivan. Soul of a sports car.